Hey there, it's Gwen. So during this scary time, we hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. We haven't been able to record any new episodes, but luckily the boys have previously recorded episodes for you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Scarifyer.
The following episode of Scarifyer was recorded in September of 2019.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about my co-host, the Ace. Now, this is a connoisseur of horror films. In fact, this was the man who introduced me to horror films. His knowledge reaches unlimited lengths, and he is a professor in Halloween films. In fact, that is his franchise. As he said multiple times on the show, Michael Myers is his guy. So now that he has his own podcast, and he was asked which Halloween film he wants to review, you know what he said? Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers.
You know what I actually said is which one will piss the Gov off the most.
And it worked.
Scream for your life! To a new world of gods and monsters.
What you said before about Michael Myers living in our house, is that really true?
Mrs. Stroud, is everything all right?
Who are you?
I came to help your family.
What makes you think he'll come back here? To kill his family.
You know, I'm really scared.
Okay, Gov, let's get right into this. So, to kick off Scarifyer's first Halloween fall season.
And this is how you want to do it.
Well, you know what? Let's start off with something a little fun. And
Oh, yeah, it's a blast.
well, it's fun to tear apart.
Okay,
All
I'll
right.
give you that.
I mean, again, yes, Halloween is, my favorite franchise. Michael Myers is my guy, but everything, whether it's a great band, a TV series, you have your bad records, you have your bad seasons, and in movies, you have your bad movies in the franchise. You have those movies that really suck. But what we want to do for this episode is we want to really delve into not only Halloween 6 itself, but the long fabled, everybody wanted it, everybody demanded it, and then they weren't sure if they really did want it when it came out. Producer's cut.
This was a mess from beginning to end. Absolutely.
Yeah, so without further ado, Gov, give me some backstory, and there's plenty of it.
All right, so I guess there's no better way to treat this Band-Aid than just to rip it off quickly. So that's what we'll do with Halloween 6 and that backstory. After the disappointing box office return for Halloween 5, series producer Mostafa Akkad was desperate to get the series back on track. However, due to a dispute over the rights, Halloween 6 remained in production hell for 5 years, to ultimately end up at Dimension Films, a subsidy of Disney at the time. With a script by the young and ambitious Daniel Farrans that attempted to reveal the truth about Michael Myers' past, the sixth installment was plagued with a director in Joe Chappelle who is more concerned with a 3-picture deal with Miramax, questionable recasting, a horrible test screening, and a butchering in the editing room after multiple reshoots. Halloween, Curse of Michael Myers was not the fresh of breath air producers hoped for, but a prime example of a film fiasco that in the end only made $15 million on a $5 million budget.
Whew.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, that's right. I mean, you hit it pretty much on the button there, Gov. I mean,
and that's just the short version of how horrible this production was. There is a lot to go into. There was a lot of problems with this film.
Starting with the name. It was advertised
that they couldn't agree on it.
Halloween 666, Halloween 6, Halloween Curse of Michael Myers. Couldn't make up their mind.
Origin of Michael Myers.
They
really couldn't make up their mind. I believe we were first introduced to it on the Crow VHS, right?
Yeah.
From 1994, where it was the original teaser trailer, and that original teaser trailer online exists on YouTube. You can watch it. It's a completely different title. Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers, with a ton of footage that doesn't end up in the film.
Sure.
Halloween 6, The Origin of Michael Myers.
So, just shooting from the hip on this one, this was a terrible production. It was cursed, from the beginning. Because just going back to what I previously just said, they were tied up in rights issue. They couldn't have a follow-up to Halloween 5 as soon as they wanted. So they ended up waiting 5 years. And then they got to about 1994 and finally got it under control at Dimensions Films. And then you get the script by Daniel Farrens, Haunting of Sharon Tate, Daniel Farrens, that attempts to harken back to the original Halloween and give you an explanation for Michael Myers. Just this concept, what do you think of this?
Oh, well, here's the thing. I think, first of all, with the character Michael Myers, giving too much backstory hurts his character.
And that's all this movie attempted to do.
And it's all it did. I'm trying to say it nicely. I mean, like, this whole, the whole Thorn cult part of it, is so stupid. And why anyone thought it was a good idea.
But here's the funny part. This script, or at least one of the original scripts that Daniel Farrens wrote, enticed Donald Pleasance to come back on, as he said, quoted, "This is the scariest script I've read since the original." Okay. And a lot of others felt that way.
Then they must have read a different script, because there was nothing scary about this movie.
The end product.
Yeah. Boy. And here's the thing, talking from a fan's perspective, and Gov, you can attest to this. The fascinating thing about this movie is, amongst the Halloween fans, it's torn. You either hate it or you love it. There's really
no middle ground.
No in between. Either you dig this whole Thorn story arc and the cult and the devil and all this, or you think it's trash. I personally think it's trash. I think
I would love to read Daniel Farrens' original script, the one that got everyone excited.
Yeah, there had to be something there to get people behind it, to get people excited, to push for another big theatrical release like it did. Again, we're Halloween at the time was really, especially after Halloween 5, the fact that this movie didn't go into Hellraiser land and direct to DVD or VHS at the time is outstanding.
Well, this was the big comeback.
I guess, but
this was H2O 2 years prior, and magazines like your Fangoria covered this movie immensely.
Right.
You know what I mean? They took a big shot with this, but then it just the movie caved in on itself and stuff like that. And I think there is an original script out there by Daniel Farrens. I've never personally looked for it. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people in Psycho Nation who have found it. Maybe one day I'll look it up, but I feel like it's one of those situations where like the original script sold us a bill of goods that was probably much superior than the end product.
Well, I mean, like a lot of movies that go bad, usually there's, the first concepts of the script are fantastic, and that's where you get your big names and a lot of promises and a lot of things to look forward to. But, as we know with everything else, as we talked about our last episode with I Know What You Did Last Summer, writers, directors, producers, they all have their own ideas, and who wins in the end.
Right.
It becomes, a pissing contest to see who can piss the furthest.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I don't have the time or patience to really read a full script. I've never been able to go and read an actual movie script. Gov, I know you have on certain movies.
Oh, sure.
So
I like that.
If the Psycho Nation's out there, and again, I am a Halloween franchise guy, but I'll be honest, I just don't have the time or patience to want to read a script. Maybe someday I will, but if you want to smarten me up and if you've read this, let us know.
But we're not talking about what should have been. We're talking about what is.
Yes.
So that's the main point. Whether or not it was something that Donald Pleasant signed on for or anyone else signed on for, what we got is what's on the screen.
Oh, yes. So, where do you want to go? Where do you want to talk about the theatrical movie?
Let's talk about the theatrical movie first because that's what we got. That's what was released in 95, and that's what was made available to us up until recently, as in recently a couple years ago.
Yep.
But, so let's talk about the theatrical version a little bit.
Okay, so this movie starts off with a very pregnant Jamie Lloyd, not played by Danielle Harris.
No.
And Gov, why was she not played by Danielle Harris?
All right. So here's a big problem I have with the production of this movie. As you know, the Gov is a big production guy. I like the backstories. I like to research these films. And this one was particularly aggravating to me. So Danielle Harris, and she'll tell you on any interview, specifically the Scream Factory ones from the big Halloween box sets, she got a tip from her agent back in 94 that they were looking for somebody to play Jamie Lloyd in an upcoming Halloween film who is 18 or older. Now, the producers of the film did not clue Danielle Harris to this. She had to find out through her agent in the ads. She was 17 at the time, not 18, but this was her role. She spent 2 movies playing this role, and the audiences and the fans fell in love with her as this character. So she pursued this movie. So much so that she went to court to get emancipated so that she can work as a legal adult, even though she was only 17 at the time, to be in this movie. This was very important to her. She really, really wanted to do it. And she went through the legal troubles. She got emancipated at her own dime of about $3,000 to $4,000 just so they can send her a script that said that her character dies in the first act. Not only was she not excited about being the mother of her uncle's child.
Well, wait. We'll get into that in the producer's cut. In the movie,
but it's clear in the theatrical one too.
Yeah, but they do try to stay away from it in the recut.
Sure, but I'm just talking about her point of view at this moment. So not only was she, not very thrilled with that point of view, she also wasn't thrilled of how her character goes out to pretty much be killed in the first act. But she was still committed. She went through all these legal hoops to do it. And then they told her that she was going to be a scale actor. Now, if you don't know what a scale actor is, that means that you are getting the base minimum for being in a movie. So at the time, in 1994/95, that means that she was probably only pocketing $800 a week. And she only had about 3 to 4 days of shooting because of how small her character was. So she, so to speak, wasn't even covering the finances she made on her own personal dime to get emancipated to be working as a legal adult. And she raised her hand and said, hey, I'm losing money if I make this film. You're not even going to cover my legal costs to be in the film. And she went through a lot of hoops. The producers fed her a lot of bullshit. The director fed her a lot of bullshit. Then ultimately a casting director said, here's the bottom line. You are a scale character. You die in the first act. We're only paying you this amount. And that's when she threw her hands up and says, I guess I'm not being in your movie. All she was trying to do was cover the costs of her legal bills and protect her character.
Have some decency!
Yeah.
And they recasted her for that.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, disrespect. I mean, again, you talking to me about the Halloween franchise, it'll become clear that 4, 5, and 6 aren't my favorite, of the entire series.
But respect is where respect is due.
Absolutely. And you know what? Halloween 4 was a good movie. It was a very good movie, and Danielle Harris killed it.
As a child.
And she deserved, a lot more respect for carrying both 4 and 5 the way she did. And, I mean, bad move.
I mean, it just goes to show how little at the time they thought of her, for one, and just, to pinch some pennies.
Yeah.
Save a buck or two. I mean,
well, and you know what? That just
she was fine to do the movie as is. She just wanted to cover her own costs and kind of feel respected as an actor for being in 2 of these movies.
Right. And again, this, you were just talking about this was the big comeback movie. That goes to prove how much, faith and support they had for this big comeback movie.
I mean, really, this was the movie that not only tied in 4 and 5, but also harkened back to 1 and 2 and set up a progressive nature to go forward.
Right.
This was the movie that's supposed to fix all the problems.
Right.
But ended up creating more.
Sure. All right. So now we got that out of the way. So Jamie gives birth, and she escapes from what we don't know at the time.
It's Smith's Grove.
It's Smith's Grove's basement.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we see Michael Myers. Now, let's remember, Michael Myers has been off the screen for 5 years.
Yeah.
Between this movie and the 5th movie, and apparently he's hit the fucking gym for 5 fucking years because this Michael Myers is massive.
Yep.
I mean, this guy, this dude, this actor, they beefed him up.
Mm-hmm. Well, to one thing from 4 and 5 that they, didn't recast, they got George P. Wilbur back from Halloween 4.
Okay.
So we can at least say that. They didn't get Danielle Harris, but they got George Wilbur back.
All right, well, George Wilbur seriously hit the fucking gym.
Sure did.
Before doing this movie.
Yeah, he did.
Because, again, Michael Myers was massive when you first saw him in this movie. The thing I liked about Michael Myers, going back to the original and why I fell in love with his character and the franchise, because he blended in with society. Mm-hmm. So on Halloween, he could walk around in that jumpsuit and mask and you wouldn't look twice. He looked like an average dude. Just
because it was Halloween.
He looks like a monster in this movie. Mm-hmm. He looks like Jason had swapped masks. Mm-hmm. Didn't dig it. I know a lot of fans get up in arms about the color of the jumpsuit. I don't even care about the color of the jumpsuit. He just didn't look right.
Right.
He looked like a monster. Now, continuing with Michael Myers, and this is something that's driven me nuts about the entire franchise, even the movies I like, except for, and before you jumped on my throat, let me finish my statement.
Go for it.
With the exception of Halloween Resurrection and the new one, Halloween 2018. All right? The
Mm-hmm.
Mask. Why on earth, why on earth would you, 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 why on earth would couldn't they recreate the original mask in all the movies? It was a Don Post Captain Kirk mask, spray painted.
Sure.
So they use, so the first two movies, it's the same mask.
Mm-hmm.
One's just deteriorated because it sat under Deborah Hill's bed for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But then the fourth movie comes out, and it's so just plain. And there's multiple masks in there because the prop guys didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Halloween 5, I don't even know what they did with that. It's the long face, the long hair in the mask. This movie, it looks like a mold of a fat dude's face, painted white.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Halloween Resurrection. I think the only thing I liked about that movie was the mask. I like this. I like the way the shadows played off the sculpt of the mask. I thought it made it look pretty menacing. I know a lot of people don't like the eyebrows. That didn't bother me, but the way the shadows hit the mask in that movie, I thought was pretty darn cool. Halloween H2O, we'll save that for another episode because that
one of the four.
Yeah, the story of that mask is a show in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the new one, Halloween 2018. Rob Zombie. Same thing.
Dry rot mask.
But I really dug the Halloween 2018 mask too. It looked old and beat up, but it still had that look of the original movie. But again, I went on a long ramble there, but my point being is, Gov, why change the mask? It couldn't have been too hard to recreate.
Well, I'll backtrack to you a little bit because I do know the history of the mask. So the first one, yes, Don Post, Captain Kirk, Star Trek mask that they altered, took the eyebrows off, or no, they took the sideburns off, spray painted white, widened the eyes. Same exact mask in Halloween 2. It obviously was older. It aged a little bit. No big deal. In Halloween 4, they got a new Captain Kirk mask, and at the time, those ones were painted kind of a pink with blondish hair, and they actually shot for 2 weeks with that mask when somebody said, this is just not right, we got to make it look more like the original mask. So they reshot a lot of scenes, but there is one scene where you can still see the pink and blonde mask, and they just, spray painted it white and gave it brown hair. The fifth movie, they tried their best to make it look like it was deteriorating. They wanted a melting effect. It didn't really work out in the end because they had the same mask from 4, but they tried to melt it down, but it ended up looking like a weird alien with a long neck.
Right.
Halloween 6, new movie, new mask. Don't know where it came from. Some costume designer, some makeup artist, I'm sure. But it does not resemble at all the previous masks.
Yeah, the mask, it just looked terrible.
I think they wanted it to be more menacing, a little more shading in its features and stuff like that.
The lips were gray.
It was, and they put felt over the eyes. Yeah. I think I read somewhere that they sculpted it on a thinner man's head, and then when George P. Wilbur put it on, his face was obviously wider. So that's kind of what gave it that very big, effect.
It could have been, but boy, I don't know. Like I said, it didn't look right. It doesn't look right. I don't know.
And then talking about the other masks in H2O, I like the Stan Winston mask that they did all the reshoots with.
I did too.
Resurrection, not as good. And then fuck Rob Zombie, Halloween 2018, Old Man Myers. It's fine.
Yeah. So back to Halloween 6. So we get our first look at Michael Myers. They do a pretty darn good dimming effect as he's walking towards the nurse.
Yeah.
We get a good kill of him jamming her head through a random
spike in the wall.
In the wall. We don't know why it's there. We don't really care, but we just got a good kill.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Gov, what did you think when you first saw Michael Myers in Halloween 666?
He just kind of walked into frame.
Right.
the big return movie, getting us back to status quo, making the franchise good again, making it great again, and he just kind of walks into frame. You know what I mean? No reason why he's there. He's just there because the music is playing and, this nurse deserves to die. And this harkens back to the horrible editing, which we'll delve into more when we get into the producer's cut. But
yeah, I mean, like his entrance, I liked how it had. He showed up with a dim effect. I think it would have been better if they didn't do the POV before he shows up.
Yeah.
I think if you just saw her running her through the hallways and then all of a sudden Michael was there, being dimmed up, that would have been cool. Mm-hmm. But given the POV, you blew your one shot a little surprise.
Right.
Because you knew Michael was there.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Why else would you do a POV if it's not Michael?
Yeah. And again, you kind of lose the boom factor. Michael's here.
No, yeah, he just shows up, and again, like after 5 years, this is his big moment. This is his big reveal, and that's the best he can do. He walks up a hallway and kills a random nurse.
And like I said, even if you wanted him to walk up a hallway and kill a random nurse, again, giving away that his position by POV killed the moment.
I mean, like it's a fine moment. He takes her, he sticks her to the wall and stuff that, and he does the head turn, head tilt, whatever you want to call it, and stuff like that. And the Halloween theme fades up and stuff like that. So it's kind of a good moment of like, okay, we're back, and stuff like that. But it just, I don't know, could have been done better,
right? Yeah, I mean, again, one thing I will say about the theatrical cut is that the kills were way better.
Fast editing.
So moving on with the progression of the story, we get, the next thing we get Jamie escaping with the baby, Michael with superhuman strength, turns some random truck driver's head around 360.
Why not?
I mean, because, again, all that time he's put in the gym, he probably could do that.
Yeah.
And that's where we go to the train station, where Jamie hides the baby and eventually evades Michael, where she meets her demise in a random barn.
Yep. So again, kind of like Michael in Halloween 1, Jamie, who's been, kidnapped in this strange occult for 5 years, learned how to drive somewhere.
Right.
And she...
Well, but we don't know that. Again,
we sure do. She hops in a car and just takes off.
No, we don't know that she's been kidnapped by the cult. We find that out in the producer's cut.
Okay. But, again, you're leaving room for assuming.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm trying to talk to this as we only watched the theatrical cut. Mm-hmm. One thing I will say about the good thing about the producer's cut, the story made much more sense.
And that's the thing is I'm pointing the holes out.
Yeah, right. I get that, but I'm just right now I'm trying to go from the perspective of we're just watching theatrical.
Fair enough. Right. Okay, I'll keep it strictly theatrical and I'll keep mental notes.
Yeah.
All right. So Jamie flees. She flees her cult.
You see where the headache comes in, people?
Yeah, I know.
I'm beginning to get a headache.
So for those of you listening, just so we're clear, if you are being stalked by a serial killer, if someone is trying to kill you and you have the chance to make a phone call, don't call for help. Don't call the police. Call a Howard Stern wannabe.
I know.
Idiot! I'll kill you.
Stupidly. And lucky for her, fucking Dr. Loomis was listening to the same shock rock DJ.
Because that's what guys in their 70s do, you know?
Apparently he's the only radio personality in Haddonfield.
In the world.
Oh, my God. And yes, he was listening that night.
He was listening.
And this is where we get...
Not only listening, he was recording.
Yeah, the introduction to the final performance of the great Donald Pleasance.
Yes. So, Now, amongst all this, we're reintroduced to Dr. Loomis, who is not dead, but very much retired, as he likes to point out.
Yeah.
Gov, great actor. What do you think of this final curtain call?
You know what?
The great Donald Pleasance.
I feel bad because this was his swan song. This was his final performance, and when we get to the producer's cut, you can see how much he invested in and he gave it his all.
Yes.
This was his Boris Karloff's Targets.
Yes.
This was his final moment, and he gave a great performance. He said goodbye to the fans in a fantastic way. Just from that opening line, when he's listening to the radio and he says what you said, not dead, but very much retired. Like, you just got that sense of...
Yeah, this was going to be it for him.
He knew it was going to be it for him. This is how he wanted to go out.
Yes, and, again, I know I just kind of gave you a hard time about mixing producer's cut as we're trying to talk about the theatrical cut.
We'll get there.
And we'll get there. But one thing I will say, just on the topic of Donald Pleasance, I think the biggest tragedy of the reshoots and the recuts was cutting out so much of Donald Pleasance.
We didn't get to see his full performance.
And to me it's heartbreaking when you watch the producer's cut and you see how much more impact he had to the actual story, and it just wasn't there in the theatrical cut.
Yeah. But even in the theatrical cut, it was still a great moment, and it was he still gave it his all.
He did.
He was there, and he was there to go and leave his signature.
Yeah.
So there's nothing about this movie that works, but if there's one thing that did, either theatrical or producer, it's Donald Pleasance.
It's like one of those things. It's like Indiana Jones 4, which I reference. I mean, a great performance in a shitty movie.
Yeah.
So
he didn't feel the movie. The movie failed him.
Yes, just like Harrison Ford. And boy, we can get into a lot more of Dr. Loomis when we start talking about the producer's cut, but let's keep going.
So here we are. We're reintroduced to Dr. Loomis since Halloween 5 years later, and he's still very much alive. And we also get introduced to not a new character, a character from Halloween 1, Dr. Wynn, played by a different actor.
Right.
But he was in Halloween 1. He is the guy who walks out with Loomis after the great escape from Smith's Grove.
Yes.
And he comes in and they, do the big old buddy thing of, rehashing old times and old friends and stuff like that. And that's when Dr. Loomis gets the urgent call from Jamie via the radio.
Yep. And there's someone else listening to the radio at this time.
Sure is.
Ant-Man.
Paul Stephen Rudd in this film.
In his first movie, Paul Rudd, we find out is Tommy Doyle. The Tommy Doyle from the original. And
I will point out they did attempt to reach the original Tommy Doyle, but he was unreachable apparently.
Well.
So we had to settle for Paul Rudd, that hack.
Yeah. So, Paul Rudd, he's, obviously mentally damaged from the events of Halloween 1 and living across the street from the Myers house, which is now owned by another family.
The Strodes. Ironically.
Not those Strodes, but the brother of the Strodes. And that mess of a family. So he's sitting there, stalking them, and we get introduced to Father of the Year.
Well, the other lead of the film, Kara Strode, and her son, Danny.
Yeah. Single mother, young kid. I mean, again, it's almost kind of retelling Jamie's story a little bit.
It's kind of what they were going through. I think they were trying to move it to next generation where this kid might be the new Michael Myers. Obviously, we got the baby, Jamie's baby, who's supposed to literally be the new Michael Myers. But this kid is also, I guess, tacked in as well. And So the Strodes are back in the Myers house, and yes, we do have Father of the Year.
Yeah.
John Strode with his wife Deborah. Yes, fans, make that connection. Deborah and John. It was on purpose.
Yep.
The only problem is John here is an abusive alcoholic. John Strode, played by Bradford English, is the greatest character in this movie. I love this silvered-haired John Goodman.
Well, I've never heard it taken from that perspective. Do explain.
I just find him so entertaining. You know what I mean? Because he's so over the top, and he's overacting his ass off just to make the stupid ass movie work with his wife Kim Darby, who was in a John Wayne movie, the most famous John Wayne movie, True Grit. But she was also in Teen Wolf 2, so
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, he just does such a good job being that asshole that we know we want to see him die, and at least in the theatrical cut, it's a big payoff.
Yeah.
I just love this guy for no good reason.
Yeah, but you know what I always thought was funny? You know, as over the top that he was, and you know how mean he was.
I mean, just the scene where he's like, "Hey, let's give her all her goddamn money." He throws the things at her. It's so good.
It is so good, but you know what? We also discovered that what he couldn't hide in his acting was the line he had a hard time crossing.
Yeah,
because when he's talking about Kara's son, and he mumbles under his mouth, "That little bastard of yours."
Yeah.
You could tell how uncomfortable he was saying that line about a little kid.
Sure.
I mean, like, you know, he's supposed to be this big, mean guy who hates everybody in his family. And he just couldn't hide it as an actor, how uncomfortable he was saying this about this little kid.
Because, like most great actors, he's probably an angel in real life.
Right.
He's probably
a great guy.
He's probably the world's nicest guy and stuff like that. And so he had to reach a little deep to call this kid a bastard and stuff like that. But he does it so well. Yeah. He does this character so well. I mean, like everybody, like you go to cons and if he's there, they ask him to say Michael Myers bullshit. You know what I mean? I love this guy. Next to Donald Pleasant's my favorite character in the fucking movie.
All right. I'll get with you on that. As it plays out, Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, saves the day and finds the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael shows up to take the baby.
Yeah.
Kills all the Strodes in the process.
Yeah.
We get a great death from our Father of the Year, getting electrocuted.
And his head explodes. What else would you love to see from this character?
And, again, you know, just kind of like this movie literally had nothing holding it together. It kind of turned into just like a movie of parts just sewn together. This theatrical cut.
Because it was.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, like it was obviously it had no idea what it was doing.
Yeah.
Just like in randomness. So, you know, he kills the Strodes, and then he's randomly at the rave. Michael Myers is, and kills the DJ for no apparent reason. Kills Kara's brother and his girlfriend for no apparent reason.
Because they're in his house.
Yeah. I mean,
once you get past the scene where Tommy, Paul Rudd, finds the baby and reconnects with Dr. Loomis for 5 fucking seconds in a hospital, and we don't even know why Loomis is there, it pretty much goes beat by beat.
Right.
You know what I mean? Michael Myers is there, kills the housewife, kills the husband, kills the brother, kills the brother's girlfriend, kills the radio DJ, and then we get our big twist ending that it's all about a cult thing run by Dr. Wynn,
right.
And that Tommy's caregiver in the, you know, home across the street from the Strode's house is a part of it, is also just so she can give a real creepy monologue. And then it pretty much plays formulaic. You know, you get to Smith's Grove where the whole thing's going to go down.
Right.
So you got Paul Rudd and Donald Pleasance entering Smith's Grove, wanting to find the baby back, find Kara Strode because she was taken by the cult as well. And that's when you get the backstory that Dr. Wynn was a part of all this, and he was the caretaker for Michael, not Dr. Loomis.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the cult leader.
The Man in the Black from
The Man in Black.
Halloween 5.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Yes.
It was Dr. Wynn.
The whole time.
Yep.
So then you get a lot of carnage scenes. You get a scene where Michael just randomly enters an operating room and just hacks people up with a machete, which I never understood why he picked up a machete, but he did.
You know, why is it a machete on an operating table? But, however, it was a good scene. I mean, it was a good kill scene.
It was a fast-cutting, very flashy scene. And you know what? For the longest time, I didn't know that Dr. Wynn was in that room.
Yeah.
I thought he just disappeared from the movie, but it turns out he was in that room and he got killed.
Right.
You know, if you put the movie on slow-mo enough.
But, again, still, the randomness of it doesn't make sense because if Wynn is Michael's caretaker, why is he just slaughtering him now?
Yeah.
Why is he slaughtering everybody in the hospital? Why didn't he just do it before?
The movie has been steadily unraveling, and we're really starting to see the result of that.
Right.
So after that, we catch back up with Tommy and Kara. They got the baby back. They got
after he tries to break her out of a room that's locked, and Michael walking as slow as ever.
Mm-hmm. That's saying a lot for Michael.
Can't get to him even after almost 2-minute pause and stare by Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make their way into another room where Michael is ultimately defeated through the power of lethal injection and a lead pipe to the face a couple times by Paul Rudd.
Mm-hmm.
And that does it. Smash cut, as in where we just cut to black and then, not even a fade in, just smash into Paul Rudd, Kara Strode, and her son and the baby in a car. Paul Rudd saying, "Come with us." For some reason, Dr. Loomis, who's just been kind of hanging out the whole time, says, "No, I can't." He goes back inside. The movie ends with Donald Pleasance screaming, and as we pan down to Michael Myers' mask next to an empty syringe, cut to a pumpkin, the end, and credits. Theatrical cut.
As we move on to the producer's cut, from the theatrical cut, it does fill in the holes. A little bit.
A little bit.
So, before we get into that rant, Gov?
Let's talk about how we felt about the theatrical cut.
You first.
I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, short answer. It's not one of the Halloween sequels that I particularly grew up with. It's one I think I caught later because I had really no interest in visiting it. And then when I saw it, I thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. This is post H2O, post Resurrection. Not that Resurrection was any good, but I was able at the time to watch the originals. And even compared to 4 and 5,
right?
I had a horrible time with this movie. I hated it. The editing is atrocious. You can tell it's, quick editing to trying to salvage this mess that they have on their hands. A lot of fast edits, a lot of weird sound effects, and horrible music editing. That ultimately led to a movie that has no narrative and makes no sense and creates more plot holes than they had it from the start after Halloween 5. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know what else to say, but atrocious. It's terrible. The worst Halloween movie opposed to H2, the Rob Zombie movie, in my opinion.
All right. Well, I watched this movie pretty young into my discovery of horror movies. Obviously, I watched the first and second movie first, which made me fall in love with the franchise. Had I watched this one first, I probably wouldn't have. I would probably wouldn't be as big a fan as I am today. I will say, when I watched it, I was, probably 12, 13, 14. And I hung out with a friend in high school who was all about this storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And look, when you're that age, you just watch movies just to watch movies. You don't care what, you don't really pick up what's terrible and what's not terrible. You just watch a movie because it's watching a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, at 12, 13, 14 years old, getting the whole Michael Myers backstory and the thorn, I was like, oh, yeah, cool, because I didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
I was just watching a movie just to watch a movie. Now I'm getting this whole backstory on Michael Myers and whatever, This is why Michael Myers does it. Well, as I got older and started to watch movies, I don't want to say more seriously, but started to understand movies and understand stories better and how they play out, I hate it. I really, again, the giving so much detail and backstory to Michael Myers, I feel hurts his character. You lose the mystery of Michael Myers, which he had in the first two movies. It was so dumb. I mean, again, to go Satan worship in a cult, oof, a stupid tattoo on the wrist.
Yeah.
Tommy Doyle, really, I mean, again, I said it, before, when we were getting into this, in fan world, you either love this or you hate this, and there are people who love this version of Tommy Doyle, played by Paul Rudd, and I get it. Again, if you love that storyline, he's the hero. I didn't. I just didn't. It was like, it was my big issue with Rob Zombie's Halloween. It gave too much away, and to the point where you didn't care about the characters or Michael Myers.
I mean, in the end, I guess that was the point. And, as we're approaching the producer's cut, we get into the reasons why they made the decisions they made. But that was the point, and that was, I guess, the reason to entice people to come back to the theaters to see this is like, okay, we're going to tell you why he can't be killed or why he does the things he does.
Right.
Kind of like the long and short of it, it's kind of a gimmick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a way to entice people back to the theaters after the debacle of Halloween 5. So I understand it from that point of view. Was the decisions horrible? Yes. Horrible decision making if that's what they wanted to go with. But that's what they went with. Hey Psychos, it's the Gov again, thanking you for listening to part 1 of this previously recorded episode. We have a lot more of these unreleased episodes coming your way as we get through this global crisis that is COVID-19. So join us next week for the follow-up, part 2, Halloween 6, The Producer's Cut. In the meantime, remember to like, share, subscribe, everything Scarifyer. We aren't going anywhere.
Scarifyer.